So we are halfway through Perek Yud Zayin. We're on Daf Shin Pei Tes in this the Hartman version of the Maharal of Netzach Yisroel. Just to review what the Maharal is talking about, he's talking about the koyach of Esav. How he started off by quoting the famous medrash that Yaakov Avinu sees all the kings, all the Goliaths going up and coming down, but Edom just keeps on going because it's a very, very long time. And there's a special koyach that Edom has. And he quoted the Gemara Megillah says that there's a certain, that the core of Edom is Germania shel Edom. And if they would have koyach, they would just destroy the whole world, if they would be able to go out on their own. And every day, there's 300 princes against 365 chieftains, and every day they go out to each other to fight each other, and they kill each other, one a day. So he said, what does all this mean? So he says, the koyach of Edom, the koyach of Esav is from the koyach of the sun. The sun is the strongest, most powerful physical entity, and that's what Esav is. And Yaakov is more, and that's why they go by the solar calendar. Yaakov Avinu is more mechuber to the moon, which is the lunar calendar. And he said that the same way the sun really has two koiches. It's got his own innate power in a vacuum, the koyach of the sun itself, the raw unleashed power, and that's alluded to the number 3. The reason being is because it's singular in its strength. Now it's not going to be number 1. See, therefore, because it's singular, it's not going to be an even number, because 2, 4, 6, that's always something that's on the same madrega. So real power is always going to be odd. So you say, well, it'll be number 1. Echad is Hashem. And therefore the next in line is 3. The 300, because that's always multitudes of 10, 100 is just strength. 300 is symbolic of the raw strength of the sun. And there's 365 chieftains. 365 is because the sun has 2 koiches. It's got his own koiches, innate koiches, and then there's how the sun gives light to others. That's more symbolic of how it spread its light, which is the koyach based on how it's received by others, and that's more symbolic of the rotation of the sun. Because when it rotates, it spreads light in all directions, and that's 365 days, 365 rotations. And therefore these 2 koiches are fighting each other because they're 2 koiches of the sun. And he says, and then when it means that they go out against each other, this kingdom of Esav, as I'll explain in a moment, there's a crack, there's a duality, there's a breaking in and of itself. You see, the crack is the fact that you have this unique system, which is 2 concepts that are bound to each other and split. You see, when something is singular, it just has one. It's one. If 2 things are completely unrelated, they're not connected at all. It's not a split. You have a split. You see, like I'll give you like a symbolic Klal Yisrael. Why is the lack of achdus of Klal Yisrael so damaging? I don't get along with Goyim. Who cares? The answer is because we're not connected. The problem is when you have within one system a connection and then at parts disconnected, that's when it's unhealthy. A complete break in between you can handle. Like you sever the limb, then you could survive without it. The problem is when you're connected and there's a disconnect. That's what you're having over here in this 4th kingdom, is you have these 2 koiches. They're both connected by the fact that they stem from the sun, but because they have distinct strengths, there's a split. And that's symbolic of the chieftains and the princes fighting every day. And he says, "Bavur ki shneim im koyach malchus ervius v'yeshlem toikev hashemesh v'im nivdolm zeb." They're still disconnected. V'davar zehu is snagdus kashetavins, and this creates an imbalance and a tearing apart, as everyone understands. Ad sheyimtze bittul hamalchus mitzad ma mitzad atzmai, and it ultimately will lead to a decaying in and of itself, a self-destruction. And he says, "V'zeh amar." That every day they go against each other and one of them kills the other. Because of this, it can never be fully strong. It can never be fully unleashed its own power because of this split. And therefore there's an aspect of a breakdown. Again, not a full breakdown, because that you need HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but there's sort of, it's being muzzled a little bit. And he continues, there's another depth, that each day one goes against the other and kills one of them. This fourth kingdom, HaKadosh Baruch Hu never allows Edom to go full strength. If you go full Edom, it'll destroy the world. Hashem never allows that. Because if it was in complete unleashed power, the world would not exist. As we talked about last time. And if they were complete, not only would the world cease to exist, but there would be no split between them. And the HaKadosh Baruch Hu created this imbalance in order to stop it. Hashem needed them to basically get in their own way, to stop it from being full bore. Because if they would actually unite together, it would destroy. It would be too much. There needs to be that conflict in order to stop each other, that friction, to actually stop, to keep that power in balance. And he says, Shekol davar asher hu bepoil b'shleimus kolecha v'cha'im ba'atzmai. I'm sorry, because when something is complete, what would happen is they would have to be singular. Now there would be complete splits. Meaning, in order for it to be complete, full bore power, what you would either need is for them to completely get on the same page, or to completely split from each other. Therefore, it's one unit. But what happens right now is that they're stemming from each other, but split at points. And that's the issue. And that's why it stops them from really being able to unleash their own koiches. Again, because Hashem would not allow it. And if they were b'shalom, there would be no infighting. But because Hashem made it that they're not full power, meaning, if you look at number 72, he said this is based on a pasuk. Katzar metzah zeh mishtar olav shnei roim ke'echad. Legabi hatzolim shehem in Menashe beheichel hatzolim. Meaning, the pasuk says Katzar hametzah mishtar. There's not enough room to basically stand straight. Meaning, he says hakavana hi she'olam hazehu makom tsar midai melahachel by bepoil as keichaisav shel malchus revius. This world is too physically small to handle all of Edom's strength. And therefore, it's like chicken and the egg. Therefore, there are cracks. Mm-hmm. And he says, Nafki hani lapi hani miktucha minayu. V'zeh bara b'li safek kashatavin. This is bar to anyone who understands. In omek ma'oid yoyse rak yeshel lefarshiyas. I can't go into it. It was always interesting whenever the Maharal does that, where he says, like, it's a very deep Indian that I can't get into. It's like, it's like if you go into it, the bad things would happen, Right? The Gemara says that each day one of them gets killed, and then they spend the rest of the day replacing him. What does it mean? He says because it's not roy for a malchus to have gaps. At a practical level, I was talking to Gavin about this. The issue you have historically, we're talking with Iran. Like, what's the end goal? I'm sure they're thinking about this. They're way smarter than I am. I'm sure they're talking to Trump about this. Let's say you remove Khomeini. Now what? You have to have a replacement idea, because what happens is if you leave a vacuum for a kingdom, it creates chaos. And he says, and Edom is so chashiv, it should not have a vacuum. And therefore, what happens after one of them gets killed? They immediately replace him. Because you can't have a power vacuum, because it'll lead to like ISIS. And he says, Ein roi b'malcha she'echasim imshala, mitad iluk mimalka. And therefore they try to replace him right away. Kolomer, ein shleimus l'malcha zeh she'nimtza koyach malchusim b'poil, shemhaya nimtza b'poil ha'mechrim moilim. Again, it can't be full shleimus, because if it was full shleimus, it would destroy the world. Raki tamid him yoitzim al poil. They're constantly trying. If you look at number 75, Pirshim Tom Mishtoikikim Lotzis Alapoil. They're constantly trying to get to that perfection. And therefore, they're not going to have a power vacuum. They're wanting... The second someone dies, replace them. They're trying. Like, Edom is constantly striving for that perfection they'll never get. Physical perfection, obviously, not spiritual. They're never actually able to do it, but they're trying. Matridi, meaning like a mitrid means they're attempting. It's a constant. It's constantly trying, and that's, by the way, the issue that a lot of people have is that if you're trying to define yourself based on physical success, you'll constantly your whole life you'll just be trying. If it's money, you'll never have enough. And he says, "Hare galu loch al koyach malchus revius." Chazal have now revealed to us the strength of this fourth kingdom. Asher koyach malchus zeh mushba v'yoytze lepol tamid. This kingdom is constantly attempting to unleash its full power. That's what it's constantly trying to do. And it'll never actually be what it wants to be. And that is its greatest downfall. They are not complacent. They know that they're capable of physical strength more and more power and more education and more technology, whatever it is. And therefore it doesn't actually destroy the world. Why? Meaning like this. He's saying is that when something is complete, then it has the ability to spread and devour and control that which is incomplete. That's the nature. And he says over here in number 77, that's why when Yaakov Avinu, when he finally gave birth to Yosef, he was now confident about Esav. Why? Because he knew that he was only a chelik, splitting the worlds with Esav. But Yosef is the perfection. And once Yosef is the tzaddik yisod olam, and once there's perfection, there's a completeness, then it's able to actually conquer that which is incomplete. So he's saying because Esav is incomplete, therefore it won't destroy the world. Had it been complete, that it's like, it's like lahavdil avidal. It's like you watch these like Marvel type concepts. Like once something has absolute power, it like destroys worlds. Right. It destroys planets. Because Esav is incomplete, therefore it allows the world to exist. He says, you're only able to affect others that which you are yourself. The more complete you are, the more you're able to completely destroy. But this kingdom is not complete. Understand this well, because I'm revealing the strength of the fourth kingdom. It's These are just the expressions of the strength, that which comes, which is symbolic, which stems from the sun. It's a weird conclusion. It's a very strange conclusion. Also, we have to understand what it's also saying is getting from the sun. I think it means from the malach. It's the koyach comes to the malach of the sun. It doesn't actually mean that the sun doesn't have koyach of itself. That's obviously idolatry. It just means that Kadosh Baruch Hu puts shefa through the malach of the sun that goes to this kingdom. That's what I would assume. He says, the Gemara over there, after it describes Germany, let me read you the Gemara because it'll be in a get. The Gemara says, Amar Ula. Ula said, Italy shel Yavon zekrach gadol shel Romi. Italy of Yavon, this is the great city of Rome. The great city of Italia came into being as a result of the wrongdoing of Menashe. This is Rashi. When Menashe introduced an idol into the temple, the angel Gabriel descended and drove a post into the ocean. In the course of time, sediment collected, and eventually this island was formed. It was on this island the city of Italia was built. So the great city of Italia is also the great city of Rome. I'm not sure. I guess it's the strength of Rome, which is Italy. Tlas mea parsa. It's 300 parsa by 300 parsa. Same number, 300. It has 365 marketplaces. 365. Kimini Masachama, the days of the solar year. Katan Shabakulam Shalmaichri is the smallest marketplace sells birds. like chickens, whatever. Vav shisha aser mil al shisha aser mil, and it's 16 mil by 16 mil. By the way, a mil is about 1,000 yards. 16 mil by 16 mil. Every day the king eats in a different one. And everyone who lives in the city, even if he was not born there, takes a stipend from the king's palace. And if you were born there, you don't live there, you also get a stipend, just the wealth that they have. There are 3,000 bathhouses in the city. And 500 windows direct the smoke upwards away from the city walls. One side of the city is bound by the ocean. One is mountains. One is a barrier of iron. And one is pebbly grounds and swamps. That's the Gemara. So let's run through it. So he says, okay, Adkam, it's the next paragraph. Kvar Amarnu, we've already explained. Again, this is coming from the strength of the sun. He says, Kvar Amarnu, ki hashemesh mitzad atzma mesyachas lemis b'shalosh meis mitzad etzem hashemesh, right? We talked about before how the sun's power in and of itself is described as 300. Gam yesh l'chofet tenuos, and the other strength is how it expresses, which is through the rotations, which is 365. Ki kol yom v'yosh yesh lo mahalach miyuchad at shasa yomim. Keneged ze amar ki akrach ba'atzmu shalosh meis parsa shkach royal ze k'mesh is bar. Amakim mechulk l'shasa chalakim v'yeshes hashvakim. So mamish, it's 300 size by 300 size, but it has 365 markets because it's those two numbers. But what does it mean that the smallest of them sells birds? He's saying this Gemara is describing the strength of Edom. So I get the numbers 300, 365, the sun, great. The smallest of them sells birds. Birds are created from the water. Okay, at the bottom they bring down from Rashi because birds were created from the rakak. Rakak is the combination of mayim va'aretz. I don't know, whatever this means. I guess it means like metaphysically, it's more connected to water. Ve'ein boy memshalas achama. Therefore, out of all of them, the thing the fire has the thing that the sun has the least ability to affect is water, because it's water and fire. They're not really. It's the opposite. So the smallest of it is going to be birds, because birds are connected to water. Okay. Another explanation. It's describing the face of Malachim. I guess the face of the bird is the smaller face. This is known to those that understand Kabbalah. I'm not even going to try to explain this because this is like a Kabbalistic concept. All he's saying is that the same way that on the face of the kruv of one of the angels had the face of man, it had the face of the kruv. The kruv is like a baby, like a cherub, like a child. So there's a big face and a small face, the Gemara says. So he says, so over here, the smaller one is the birds. It means the same way there's a big face and a smaller face, it's the smaller one is the birds. I don't understand, to be honest. This is something above my pay grade. He says, "Aval pirush arishan ikar," but this is not the real pirush anyway. Go with the first one. Okay. Then it said that the size of the marketplace was Tes Zayin mil by Tes Zayin mil, 16 mil by 16 mil. Mashamar shu Tes Zayin parsa, Tes Zayin parsa. Tes Zayin parsa. Okay, we had Tes Zayin mil. Okay. What does it mean that it's, why 16? Right, the size of the marketplace is 16. Why 16? Pirush ki hashetach zeh haya shuk. Ki ein hashuk rak shu petach shetach mispashid legamri. The marketplace is it's trying to show how expansive, how big it was. And that's 16 is a very appropriate number for something that's large and expansive. Why? He says, "V'raylaza ki nasacham." But in halacha, what's a rishus harabim on Shabbos? Right? If I had to ask you what's the definition of rishus harabim, you say a public street. Some say it needs 600,000 people. Some say you don't. But it has to be 16 amas wide. 16. And the explanation he's going to say, I believe, is that a private property, rishus hayachid, is 4 amas by 4 amas. Right? It has to be 4 amas by 4 amas. 4 amas by 4 amas squared is 16. Meaning 4 amas by 4 amas is symbolic of a private place. Your place is 16. Once you go above 16, now it's public. Now it's bigger. So the marketplace, when it's trying to show the expansiveness of Edom, it's 16. 16 is, it's like a Rosh Hashanah. It's no longer private, it's public. And he says, Ki nasacham sratio platia sheish bedin Rosh Hashanah, right? These public fairways, shem rechavim sheish yamas, they have to be 16 amas wide. Shetira ki ein shetach gomer rakid eireichav sheish. It means that to be large and expansive, it has to be at least 16. V'davar zeh inin amak umuflag. Different terminology. It's deep and wondrous. But let me give you a little bit of a remez. To understand that the words of the Chachma is deep, deep. Gemara always says that the Rosh Hashanah is dalad al dalad. Right? For it to be a house, it has to be dalad al dalad. For Chayv Mezuzah, dalad al dalad is always the somewhat small. But dalad amas is makif and oisat tazan amas. That's a square area of 16 amas. V'dav is a roh makan rabim. Sharabim overboy. Look at number 97 Pirish. Mashiesh liyachin me'arbat stadim. That which an individual has in all 4 directions. Yesh l'rab b'tzad echad. That which you have in all 4 directions, the rabim has 4 sides, right?
4 plus 4 plus 4 plus 4.
Correct. That's what you. That's the total is one side of a public property.
The circumference, in other words.
Correct. Yeah. And he says, Sharam Oivenboy, then Shem Spashit Zamakim, it expands. Shumakam Yochid, Shemisper Arba Bilvad, Lias Makam Rabim. 16 is the transition from a private property to a public property. And he says, then Shem Spashit Machal Arbit Stadim, Shushay Sesre, Shumakif Makam Yochid. Kenya Mispashal Makam Rabim Tzadechot. Lekach Misper Tezain al Tezain Ushayach al Shuk. And therefore the Shuk, which is trying to show how expansive, how large it is, it's 16 by 16. Shumakam Rabim Bufulish. Mizahatam Atzme Makam Yochid Arba Amis. Kamakam Yeshel Shetach. Choshetach Yeshel Hispashtus. This is interesting, meaning that 4 by 4 goes to 16 because 4 amas is an amount that could spread. But he says 4 directions. Aval ama, but if it was 1 amma by 1 amma, ein le hispashtus. 1 amma by 1 amma, it's not clear. There's no clear movement by 1 amma. It's too small. Ki amma achas merubas. Because it's one by 1 is not gonna. It's a perfect square. It's not gonna make much of a dent. But I'm not sure exactly what this means. Kashatitin l'davar zeh hispashtus mispashet hekef amalama ad shem dalad amas l'tzad echad. Kasher spasha b'tzad echar, v'dalad amas, v'zeh makam yochid. Makam rabim, sheish esrei. Ki mispashet hekef dalad stadim shem yochid sheish esrei amas l'tzad echad. Meis bar l'mayla. Vavin advarim il ma'oid, kvar baron is a gam ki makam acher. And his point is that the small, let's say, of 1 by 1, a square of 1 by 1 amas, that's an area of 4 amas. Even if it spreads and maxes out, it'll get to 4 by 4. But 4 by 4 will turn into 16. I'm not sure exactly. The point is that 16 amas by 16 amas is symbolic of vastness and you being big. And the Gemara says that the king eats in a different marketplace each day. Again, it's to show the chashivas of this kingdom. He says normally, look at number 104, Pirush. Malachim b'derech klal misyachsim b'klolius l'makam meishavim v'loy misyachsim l'chelkei makam meishavim. Mashegim malchus aviyis malcheha misyachsim l'chelkei mekoimim. Meaning, normally kings stay relegated to certain areas because only those areas are chashav enough. What makes this kingdom unique is that the king is able to eat in each different place in each different day, meaning each place is roy for a king. Each aspect of the marketplace is roy for a melech. And he says, Yeshel Malchus Ravi is davar miyuchad. This kingdom has something unique. Shamelch soid b'chol yom pamachas b'shana b'achas hashvakim. V'zemara al chashivas shel Malchus zeh b'yoser. It shows you the chashivas of this kingdom of Edom. Shamelch soid b'chol yom b'achas mehem, because the king is able to eat in a different place each day. Ki hashvakim Hashem shamoichrim parnosa lo b'vad sheyesh b'm sudas tam adam. Meaning, it's not only that there's food. Aval sudas malachim yimtze behem. There's a place roy for a king. It shows you that there's ravchas in each place, that even in a king, that it's king worthy. That the chashivas and the malchus is revealed. Meaning, not that the king eats there, it's that it shows you how chashiv the kingdom is, that the king, that each spot is mamish like fit for a king. Fit for a king, exactly. Kashish malchus eshvakim merchem parnosa ashes a royal malchus asasudas malachim. Mitzana malchus esham malachim say b'chol yom b'achas b'hem. But there is tuchel havin ke'elu shesa shvakim him kaneve chalufe tnuah sheish b'el l'shemesh. It makes sense that there's 365 marketplaces because each one is a different expression of the sun, expression of the king. V'nei hamelech shu hashemesh nimtza b'chol yom v'yom b'acham b'hem. In the same way that the sun is expressing itself differently in each location, each day, like it's sort of the sun like lights up a different part of the marketplace.
It's like the rotation of the sun.
Correct.
Yeah.
Understand that. Meaning, if you look at number 111, Pirish Keshem Shashemesh Zakuk L'Shes Hayom, just like the sun needs 365 days, Kachamel Zak L'Shes Hashvakim, B'Yachas Hashemesh L'Chol Yom Hu K'Yachas Hamelech L'Chol Sheik.
Right.
So the same duality. Then the Gemara says, Hanoilid Sham Af Bishen Darboy. If you born there, even though if you don't live there, Mishadar Sham Af Bishen Darboy, or vice versa, Mikabel Prasman Hamelech, they receive a stipend from the king. Ratzaloimer Shemekam Koyach Min Hamalchus. A stipend means strength. They receive strength from the sun, from the king. Zil Pras Shemekabel, that's the stipend. Kamamisha Noilid B'Mazal Acham Koyach Min Achama. Meaning, the same way, if you're born in an area of the sun, even if you're always in a cave, you have strength from the sun, or even if you're not born in the mazel of the sun, whatever that means, but you're in the sun all day, you're mekabel koyach from the sun, it means that sun has that ability to help in either way. Mm-hmm. And he says, again, all of this is to show the strength of Edom. All of this is from the king. Just reviewing the last point. He says like this. And then the Gemara continues, Kiyesh Gimel Alofim Beibani. There's 3,000 bathhouses. Daloch, Ki Inin Malchus Revius Miyucha B'Davarza, Shem Bala Yishuv B'Shvakim Rechatzois. That they're connected not only to marketplaces, but to bathhouses. Ki Shnei Dvarim Elu. Marketplaces and bathhouses, Him Yishuv Oilam. The Tikna Adam Parnasa Shalai. They both help the world survive, because you have the Parnasa in the marketplaces, and then the cleanliness, hygiene, which comfortability, which is connected to the bathhouse. Ki hashvakim sham nimtza parnasa k'may shamer ki hamelech said b'chol yom bechmim lo melach ki ein parnasasam v'sudasim k'stam adam avasudas malachim nimtza. Right, so they have that lavishness. V'chein amachatzois him idun adam, and that's also the symbolic of the merchatz. The merchatz is all about fine things, like getting a pedicure and a massage. It's mamish, it's like the finer things. And it's the opposite. He brings on the bottom of the Arabs, where they're the opposite. They're like the Mongolians. They're just traveling. They're the opposite. They don't settle down. They're not very nice. They're not very comfortable. They're not very lavish. They destroy, in other words. You understand? Mm-hmm. And he says, The Gemara famously says that all the kings will come when Mashiach comes. They're going to ask for, the famous Gemara, they're going to ask for reward. And it says, Malchus Revius Harbe Shvakim Tiknu, that Edom will tell HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we made so many bathhouses, so many marketplaces. Harbe Mechatzais Asinu, and we made so many bathhouses. Harbe Kesav Ezav Asinu, we made so much gold and silver. V'akol Asinu Kadosh Yasis B'Yisrael, that they said, well, all we did was for Klal Yisrael. Remember this Gemara? Yeah. All we did was for Klal Yisrael. Kadosh Baruch Hu Omer, what does Hashem respond? Shavakim Asisim L'Tzarech Atzbechem. Laden Atzbechem. You did marketplaces so that you could make a lot of money. Kesav Ezav Shali, and the gold and silver is mine. Shenema Aliyah Kesav Li Ezav Amar Hashem. Harelach ki ininu uma zoishi miuchedes mashi bailas yishu b'yoser. There's an inu muflik bin malchus revis of darmeil mahim dvarim gudolim yeshel farish yoser. Again, I can't explain more. Umasha Amar Gimel Alfei Beibani, and the Gemara says that there's 3,000 bathhouses. Kvar Marnu ki misper Gimel Meyas umasugol. Again, it's all the three, right? 3 is the sun, 300, 3,000. The Makam Malchus revis ben ki misper Gimel Meyas umasyachas lechama. Kvar Marnu l'mayla ki Hashem eshkayach hachayim. Ki hamerchatz hu mesyachas lechamimos hamuflig b'toikev gadol asher lechamo lekashayich l'malchus revius davar zeh. And by the way, not just out of all the number 3 is symbolic of the sun, but a bathhouse is all about heat, warmth, fire, and that's mamash the sun. The royal misper gimel alafim shu yosim shalosh meis, and it's even more than 300, right? 3, and the bigger you get, the more strength. Ki misper gimel meis hu l'davar sheni yotzim min ashir avibani yesh lechamimos hayotzim min ashir. It's hotter than normal. It's more of a revelation of the sun. Therefore, there's 3,000. And it's said that there's 500 windows, right? 500 windows. 500 is connected to windows, because the windows are meant to bring in light. V'or nechlak l'taf kuf chalokim, and 129, and the light is light, which is time, is broken up of 500 chalokim. I think is that each hour has 500 chalokim. I don't remember. I think each hour is. Yeah, the Gemara says that if you take large strides, it's spiritually not good for your eyesight. It takes 1/500th of your eyesight away. 500 is connected to light. It's known to those that are Isa Kabbalah. It says Vayir 5 times. 500 for the windows. Okay, and then the last one is it gives the boundaries of Italia. Tzad echad yam, tzad echad harim, tzad echad barzel, tzad echad chulsis. One side river, one side mountains, one side iron, and one side swamp. Ki elu dal dvarim him toikev arba ruchos. Ki yam hu toikev ma'ariv. The sea is the strength of the west. Shekach never hamayriv b'shem yam b'chol hakasav. Kedma v'yama b'neshi b'mayriv. V'chinahar megvayis hu toikev darim. And the mountains are the strength of the south. I know exactly what this means, but it's the strongest. It's connected to the south side. Mountains are connected to south. Shehu loshen hisroimus v'goiva. Darum, dar roim. It lives upon high. That's south. B'zem mibnei shadarim nikar yamin b'chol makom k'tichsiv tzafon v'yamin atabarasa v'yanamin mesukol b'sroimus b'chol davar. The south is always the right side, because if you're standing right, like in shul, the south is the right side. Right? East, west, north, south. So the south is the right side. The right is always strength, and that's a mountain. And north, meaning these 4 sides, is the epitome of strength. The epitome of ocean is connected to the west. Mountains are connected to the south. Barzel is the north. Shesham toikev v'koich habarzel. Ki mitzafon tiftach hara. Ki misham hashchasa. North is symbolic of destruction, and that's barzel. It's metal. Misham noel koich habarzel shu mashches. V'dav is a yidua min even hamagnito. Magnet. Sheshayeves habarzel v'u b'tzafon, which is connected to the north somehow. Kashanir l'chush ayin, as it's known to those that are who know about these. The chulsas and mitzulu taig of mizrach, and the east. The strength of the east is that swamp rocks. Kikol kechavim nirim oilim min oimek mizrach, lefikach taig of mizrach oimek. Shama shemesh oilim min oimek. Kamei shetaig of shalei harmag voice. Kashemesh dar begoyve bedarim. Chulsas him avanu ketanim v'darkim legal ba'oimek. It's connected to valleys. That's where you find these little pebbles because that's the strength of the east. Okay, you have to know exactly what this means. It's, yeah, and he says v'hina lekrach hazet toikef ha'olam kuloi, and therefore this Italy is like it's surrounded by the strength of every element. Ki yesh lekoyach daled ruchas ha'olam. Kvar amarnu ki kol inyan zeh shel sheyesh l'malchus koyach ha'yishav yosef came mekabel minachama asher mushelas ba'olam shu yishav lekach mesiachas ma'yishav yosef u'meshur davar zeh kashir roy lechama. Dvar me'el berurim ma'oid l'misha me'evin es elu dvarim. Ashetim se'elu dvarim be'malchus arvius ma'asham she'em mailus oshan chutz l'chayma. And when it says that the smoke was outside of the wall, shlevat la'arva it's to not affect the ability to breathe. V'chol dvarim elu koyach ha'chama, because that's the ability of the sun. The sun has the ability to somehow give a tremendous amount of strength, but not destroy. So they have these bathhouses, but it doesn't destroy with pollution. This barloch toichav amalchus yeshlam arichos atzlacha ba'il mazeh she'amdu chacham al ina malchus revius koicha galon mahus amalchus zeh she'esher ben yacher v'shis bar. We'll talk next time about the koyach of malchus and how it ultimately will fall in the hands of Yisrael. I will stop now.